رسوله الكريم. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي واجعل لي وزيرا من أهلي. ربي يسر ولا تعسر وتمم بالخير وبك نستعين يا فتاح. ربي زدني علما. ربي هب لي حكما وألحقني بالصالحين. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. اللهم فقهنا في الدين. اللهم فقهنا في الدين. اللهم فقهنا في الدين. اللهم إني أسألك علما نافعا ورزقا طيبا وعملا متقبلا. اللهم أعني على ذكرك وشكرك وحسن عبادتك. آمين يا أرحم الراحمين. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah, by the blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we are going to start Surah Ali Imran. So we are going to cover ayah number 1 till 4 today, and we'll go over the word by word meaning first. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
ألف لام ميم.
Alif Lam Mim. These are the huruf muqatta'at, meaning the letters which the Prophet ﷺ told us to read disjointed. So we don't read it as alam, we read it as Alif Lam Mim, and we do not ascribe any meaning to them. People have tried to say this might point to this and this might point to that. To that we say it might, and it might not as well. So we don't agree, we don't disagree. We say that the meaning is with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone. Then ayah number 2.
الله لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم.
Allahu, Allah, la ilaha, there is no God, ilaha, we learned this, illa, except, huwa, him, al-hayyu, the ever-living, hayyu from ha, ya, and ya, from hayat means life. Hayyu is someone who's ever living, who was living, who is living, and will be living always. Al-Qayyum, the one that sustains, the one that keeps things in place, the one who keeps things qayam, right? We learn like Iqama Salah, the one who establishes Salah and keeps it firm and everything. And we we learn also in the Quran, Ar-Rijalu Qawwamuna ala Nisa, right? The men are the Qawwam for the women. What does that mean? That the men are the maintainers and protectors, the providers, and they are supposed to have the position of a man in a home is supposed to be the one of that who maintains, who protects, and who establishes, like who gives the woman of his house, whether it's his wife, his mother, his sisters, his daughters, he gives them a safe place, and he provides for them, and he maintains for them physically, financially, emotionally, spiritually. So he is supposed to be the one who maintains that. But Al-Qayyum is a form. Qawwam is somebody who does that sometimes and who's supposed to do that. But Qayyum is the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He sustains everything, and he sustains them all the time. Okay? And we also read this ayah in Ayat al-Kursi before, so it's a reminder of that as well. And then ayah number 3.
نزل عليك الكتاب بالحق مصدقا لما بين يديه وأنزل التوراة والإنجيل.
Nazzala, he revealed, alayka, to you or upon you, al-kitaba, al-kitab, the book, and here it is referring to the Quran. So he revealed to you the book bil haqqi, in or with the truth. Haqq. Haqq means truth. Haqq also means purpose. So and we'll go over the more detailed meaning with the tafsir inshallah. Bil haqq, in or with the truth. Musaddiqan, confirming. Sidq is the truth, right? Like when we say Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, the one who was the truthful, right? And we say in Jannah, we learn the different people of Jannah. Who will they be? They will be the Nabeen, the Siddiqeen, the Shuhada, and the Salihin, right? So one of the one of the categories of the people of Jannah are the Siddiqeen, the ones who are truthful. And what does this book? This book is the truth, and it Musaddiqan, it establishes the truth of, or it confirms, lima, that which, Baina yadayhi. Baina yadayhi. Baina, in between. Yadayhi means hands. So something which is in between our hands, it's like a phrase which means something which is already there. Something which is in front of us, which is in between our hands, and is an expression to say something that was already present, that was before it. So what does this book do? This book is the truth and purpose, is truth and purposeful, and it confirms the truth. It confirms or the truth of that which was before it. Wa anzala, and he revealed at-Tawrata, the Torah, wal Injila, and the Injil. So this ayah is telling us, he, meaning continuing from the previous ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he has sent down upon you, O Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, the book in truth, confirming what was before it, and he revealed the Torah and the Injil, the gospel. Then ayah number 4. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
من قبل هدى للناس وأنزل الفرقان إن الذين كفروا بآيات الله لهم عذاب شديد والله عزيز ذو انتقام.
Min qablu, min, from, qablu, before this, meaning before the Quran. Hudan, and this is continuing from the previous ayat, this the Torah and the Injil from before this. And what were the Torah and the Injil before the Quran? Hudan lin nasi. They were guidance, hudan, they were guidance, lin nasi, for the mankind. Wa anzala, and he revealed al furqan, the criteria. Furqan comes from faraq, meaning to differentiate between something. So what is a furqan? Furqan is something that differentiates between the haq and the batil, that differentiates between the truth and the falsehood. And Furqan here is referring to the Quran. And Quran has many names to it. The main name is obviously the Quran. Furqan is one of the names of the Quran, and we learn a little bit more here. وأنزل الفرقان, and he revealed the Furqan. إن الذين, indeed there is no doubt that certainly الذين, those who kafaru, those who disbelieve, those who did kufr of what? بآيات الله, of the verses of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Lahum, for them, lam and hum, the two separate words. Lahum, for them, adabun, is a punishment, shadidun, severe, is a severe punishment. Wallahu, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Azizun, he is almighty, Dhuntiqam, and he's the one who's able to take the intiqam, who's able to take the retribution, the take the justice out and take the retaliation for what was done. And he's the one who's able to do it like nobody else. So in this ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that he revealed the Torah and the Injil before as guidance for the people, and he revealed the Quran, which is the Furqan. Indeed, those who disbelieve in the verses of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they will have a severe punishment. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is exalted in might, the owner of retribution. So we'll go over the ayat in a little bit more detail now, inshallah. So Alif Lam Mim. Again, Surah Baqarah started with Alif Lam Mim, these huruf muqatta'at, and we learned there that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala only knows the meaning of them. And there are several surahs that start with huruf muqatta'at, particularly with Alif Lam Mim. 6 surahs of the Quran start with Alif Lam Mim. These are Surah Baqarah, Surah Al Imran, Surah Ankabut, Surah Ar-Rum, Surah Luqman, and Surah Alif Lam Mim Sajda. So again, what these letters are doing for us, what this ayat is doing for us, it's a reorientation of humility for us. As human beings, we need reminders. We know something, but we keep forgetting it. We forget it, or it just gets like something at the back of our mind. So sometimes what happens is we knew something, but Allah Ta'ala refreshes it. Okay, you need to come back to it. You need to reorient yourself. And we need reminders again and again. As human beings, we are, one of the definitions of human beings is insan, from nisyan, that we forget, or some things get a bit dusty and everything. So we need that reminder ringing again and again. So Allah Ta'ala reminds us again of again, get back to your humility. Go back to your position of, no matter how many times you have read the whole Quran or studied the whole Quran, maybe you have spent years studying the whole Quran, but every time you come to the Quran, you have to still come to it as a beggar. Don't come to it as, oh, I know this already. Every time you come to the Quran, you will get something. It will give you something, and you need to come like the beggar to get from it. Because if you come as somebody who already knows, right, then you won't, then it won't, you won't be able to take from it like that. So for example, like there is a utensil, and if a utensil is already filled with water or any liquid, or it's already full, then you can't put anything in it. So first you have to empty yourselves. First you have to empty your utensils and then bring them to collect, and then you will be able to get it, right? So for example, also, if a child is sitting in front of us and the child says, oh, I already know this, I already got this, then you're not going to teach that child more about anything, because they don't have the right attitude, and they're not willing to learn anything. So you don't want to waste your time, because they're not in that zone at that time, at least, right? So first, when we come to this Quran, we have to empty ourselves, then ilm will come. And how do we empty? We empty our mind, we empty our heart from ill feelings. We come to it like a beggar. We come to it like, I am in need, Ya Allah. I'm in need always from you and from your kalam. And then I'm submitting my own aql. Again, this was also, as we spoke before, that these letters are a way to tell the people of Makkah, the mushrikeen in Makkah, and also by extension, all of humanity, all the time, that you cannot produce anything remotely close to this Quran with the same alphabets, although you have the same alphabets. Arabic is still a living language. It is spoken by widely by a lot of people all around the world, a lot of people who are Muslims as well as non-Muslims. They are proficient in Arabic. We have Arabic linguists who are not Muslims, but they specialize in Arabic language and everything. We have a large belt of people who speak and who are very proficient in Arabic language, even today. And they use the same alphabets to write poetry, prose, teach, learn everything. They are experts in grammar and composition. Yet none of them has ever been able to, and none of humankind will ever be able to, even if we all get together, that we will not be able to produce something like the Quran. So it reiterates that challenge. It reiterates to, and to anybody who doesn't believe in the Quran, it presents that challenge, and it's a reminder of that challenge, that with the same letters that you already have, you cannot produce anything like it. And also, when we come to it as a seeker, when we come to it by looking at Alif Lam Mim and understanding that I don't know the meaning, and it brings us with it that humility, that I cannot know everything. There are times in my life that some things Allah Ta'ala will make clear for me, and some things that will be hidden from me. I will not have all the answers all the time in my life. Also, that what also reminds us is that our knowledge, no matter how much knowledge we get, is limited, while Quran is an inexhaustible treasure in itself. So the treasure of knowledge and wisdom and lessons and khair and barakah that is there in the Quran is something that can never be extinguished. It's always there, and it'll keep going on and on and on and on, right? And so we come with that attitude. And another thing is that the meaning of Alif Lam Mim, um, something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not ask the Prophet ﷺ to reveal, that did not give to the Prophet ﷺ to reveal to us, then it is not possible for us to know the meaning, right? Ilm is only that which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells himself. He has given to us. So yes, we can, and people have made some indications on Alif might refer to this, and Lam might refer to this, and Mim might refer to this, but we don't know. And the best and the safest approach is to say Allahu Ta'ala alam, and that Allah knows best what is the meaning of this. And even the Sahabas, if you look at a lot of hadith of the Sahabas, the Prophet ﷺ would ask, for example, in several hadiths to the Sahabas, or he's talking to somebody and say, do you know, like for example, in a hadith he would speak to Mu'adh radiallahu anhu, and he would say, oh Mu'adh, do you know what is the right of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala upon his servant? And Mu'adh radiallahu anhu replied, Allah and his messenger know best. And then the Prophet ﷺ would explain like what is the right that Allah has upon his servant. And so similarly, many times the Prophet ﷺ would ask this. Now, these Sahabas were people who were the people who were there with the Prophet ﷺ when the Quran was being revealed, they had opinions. They were smart people. They were people who were internalizing and understanding the Quran as we cannot, as quickly and as fast and as deeper as we. For us, it will take a lot more effort to get to that depth that they could. It was their native language, and it was something they related to, and they were seeing they were living those incidents that we just learning about. So they kind of understanding that they had about the deen was obviously much deeper. Yet when the Prophet ﷺ asked them, they had an opinion, obviously, but how did they reply? They Just their reply teaches us so much humility that they would say Allah and His Messenger know best. Meaning, I might have some opinion, I might have some idea, something might have struck my mind, but you know, Allah and His Messenger know best, and I want to learn that. I want to learn that. I'm seeking that. Right? So so that it teaches us, like, even when we look at the hadith, we learn how to interact and how to get ilm and everything, and the Quran obviously tells us, and to understand the Quran we need the hadith as well. Another thing here is that although we don't know the meaning of these letters, we still get rewards for reading them. In the hadith, the Prophet ﷺ told us about used the example of these letters only when he said that there are rewards to the effect of that. There are rewards for reading the Quran, and for every letter of the Quran, in fact, that for every letter there are 10 good deeds. And I don't say that Alif Lam Mim is a word. Rather, Alif is a word, and Lam is a word, and Mim is a word. Meaning, you get 10 rewards for Alif, 10 rewards for Lam, 10 rewards for Mim. Meaning, this book has so much barakah that even when there are parts of it that we don't understand the meaning of it, we still get the reward of engaging with this book, whether we are reciting this book, whether we are holding this book, whether we are opening and looking at this book, whether we are trying to learn the tajweed of this book, how to pronounce things correctly, whether we are trying to understand the meaning, whether we are studying, whether we are teaching, whether we are sharing the ayat with somebody, whatever way we engage with this book, as long as we have love, devotion, and ikhlas in our heart, we are approaching it as this is the kalam of my Lord. Ikramah radiallahu anhu, he would look at the he would look at the Quran after he had become Muslim, and he would cry. He would say, "This is the kalam of my Lord. This is the word of my Lord that I'm able to hold, that I'm able to read, that I'm able to study, that I'm able to live my life by, that guides me every day," right? So no matter how we engage with this book, even if we don't understand it and we are able to just look at it or just recite it, even without knowing the meaning, even then there is barakah and there is khair in this book, which is there for us. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, Allahu la ilaha illa huwal hayyul qayyum. This begins with this surah is beginning with one of the biggest and the most important lessons of Surah Baqarah. What did we learn in Surah Baqarah? It reminds clearly of Ayatul Kursi when we say Allahu la ilaha illa huwal hayyul qayyum. Right? And here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah is the personal name, is the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He kept for Himself. There is nobody who can be called Allah. The name is unique, and this name is not there for anybody else. There's no plural of the name Allah. There's no masculine, feminine of the name, the word Allah, and the word Allah is totally unique in a lot of sense. And here Allah Ta'ala is saying there is no God but He. He is the alive, the ever living, and the all sustaining. Right. What it also means is that these two sifat of al-hayy al-qayyum, they kind of what they do is they prove and they establish that la ilaha illa huwa, that because he is the one who is all living and all sustaining, he has the right to be worshipped. There cannot be any other god except him, because nobody else is ever living and all establishing, all sustaining, who's self-sustaining and who sustains everything else. So in the Surah Al Imran, ayah number 1 to 6, they talk about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And in the end of Surah Fatiha, we asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Ihdina Sirat al Mustaqim. Then Allah ta'ala accepted that dua with Surah Baqarah, and then it began with Dhalikal Kitabu La Rayba Fi. And then commandments of Islam were given in Surah Baqarah. Some commandments were detailed at some places, and they were brief in some places. And then Bani Israel and their history was mentioned. And in the end, dua was made to help us, to protect us against the disbelieving people. That's where Surah Baqarah ended, that we made dua, Ya Allah, protect us from the people who are disbelieving. Right now in Surah Al Imran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us how to deal with the non-believing people, and it teaches us how to do jihad of tongue and hands against them. So how will we deal with people? How will we do things? That's what this surah will teach us a lot about that. And these ayats, especially these ayat number 2 to 6, they give us a big mission. They remind us of our purpose. And there's a principle that differentiates between a believer and a disbeliever. And what is the principle that what is the concept? What is the main thing, the key ingredient that differentiates a believer from a non-believer? And that is Tawheed. And that is what we learn in this ayah, that La ilaha Allahu Allah, La ilaha illallah. There is no God except Him. So it is not said that Allah is the biggest God. Like among gods, like for example, many other groups, what they have is this akida that there are a lot of gods, and then there's one major God. So even Mushrikeen in Makkah, what they had, their concept was, yes, they believed in Allah. They said yes, there is Allah, and for all their major needs, they would something that would really, 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 they would really, really, really need, they would ask Allah for it. But what they also believe is that these are these lesser gods, lesser than Allah, and astaghfirullah, and then they would, for their small needs, they would pray to them, right? But what Tawheed tells us is Tawheed actually totally negates that belief, which might be there in different groups today, whether it's Hinduism, whether it's Christianity, whether it's Judaism, in different forms it crops up. But what Tawheed tells us is it's not that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the biggest God among gods, but that there is no God besides Him. All those that are called God besides Him are imagination, things, concepts that are created by people, and they don't have the attributes of godness. They don't have divine attributes in them. So whether people have made, and people throughout the history, how Shaitan tricks us is that throughout human history, people have made different things into, have elevated the status of different things into divine status, whether it's Anbiya, a lot of people have taken prophets as objects of worship, or awliya of Allah, the friends of Allah, the people who used to be very pious, the people who in their life used to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala a lot, and who were doing a lot of things to get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who were telling people to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And obviously, people, when somebody invites to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, a lot of people can relate to it, who are searching for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then, but after these people passed away, a lot of people, uh, on their graves itself, uh, things have been made, the objects of worship have been made, and everything. May Allah protect us from all kinds of deviations. And or some people take malaika, angels, as the objects of worship. And we know that the Trinity, in Christianity, it says the Holy Spirit, one of them, and they look at Jibril alayhi salam like that. May Allah ta'ala protect, a'udhu billah. And a lot of places, a lot of concepts, people have taken like shajar and hajar, like trees or stones or different things, as object of worship. But what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us here is absolutely nothing is worthy of worship besides Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There are people that deserve our respect. There are people who deserve our honor. There are people who deserve our love. There is the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam that deserves our obedience, and that we follow him, that we love him, that we say durood on him, that we want to meet him, that we crave to meet him. But we don't even, he was the best of creation, yet we don't even worship him. Worship is something that is reserved only and only and only for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's why one thing that makes us believers, one thing that makes us Muslim is La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. Right? And whoever understands these sifat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whoever totally understands this, that I cannot worship, I cannot and I will not worship anything. I cannot give the status of an ilah. None at all has that status besides Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then that will be a believer. That person will meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as a believer, and somebody who has not done any shirk. Right? And then this in the next few ayat, Allah Ta'ala gives us like the dalil of this tawheed. This is the tawheed, the la ilaha illallah. And then there is a dalil for why is there's nobody who's worthy of worship besides Allah. And then Allah Ta'ala will tell us that, like, he is Hayyul al Qayyum, and then he's the one who has, in the next ayat we will learn that he has ayah 4, 5, and 6, we will learn other dalil for why is he the only one who is worthy of worship. And in this ayah, it is said that there is Isme Azam. And what is Isme Azam? It is narrated by that Al Qasim um, said that it is narrated, and Prophet ﷺ told us to the effect that the greatest name of Allah, if He is called by which He will respond, is in these three surahs: Al Baqarah, Ali Imran, and Surah Taha. Right? And this is the Ismi Azam. And what is the Ismi Azam? That if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is called by the Ismi Azam, He will respond. And it is said that it is contained in these three surahs. And from this, scholars have taken out that if you look at Ayat al Kursi, and if you look at the second ayah of Surah Al Imran, and we look at ayah number 111 of Surah Taha, then all these three contain the names Al Hayy Al Qayyum. So the scholars have extrapolated that the Isme Azam must be amongst these names. Again, we cannot be very certain, but we cannot say that this is definitely it, but this is what they have extrapolated. Also, this reminds us that there are some things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us very clear answers to, like for example, we have to pray 5 times in a day and everything. Some things are very clear, and how many salah are the first salah in each time. We know all of that for sure. But there are some things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has not told us very clearly. For example, Lailatul Qadr. Allah Ta'ala has told us that look for it in the last 10 night, and He has left it open for us. One of the wisdoms for that is, and it is also for any teacher, for example, there is wisdom in when the teacher does not tell everything to the student. They let the students use a little bit of their mind as well, right? And that is the quality of a really good teacher. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sometimes tells us, gives us hints, and through the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and through the Quran and the Hadith, and then we are supposed to do a little bit of work ourselves as well, right? So when we look at these surahs, when we look at these ayat and everything, that's what the scholars have come. So we again we should ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with these names. The Prophet ﷺ said, Ya Hayyu Ya Qayyum bi rahmatik astaghith. We say this dua in our morning, in evening adhkar as well. So on the day of judgment, what will happen is um, people will bow down in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But in this ayah, Allah Ta'ala is telling us, don't wait for the day of judgment, submit right now to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? And don't just think of him as like just a big deal or something, but think of him as everything. Think of, just turn to him for everything, right? Like we say, Inna salati wa nusuki wa mahyaya wa mamati lillahi rabbil alameen. Right? And who is Allah? Allah is the one who is Al Hayy Al Qayyum. And Al Hayy, what does Al Hayy mean? That He is ever living, He is eternal. He is the one who is always living. He was, He is, and He will be, and He is the one who gives life to other things. He does not, and we learn from Ayatul Kursi that He does not even have forget death. He doesn't have even sleep or like exhaustion or everything. Those things don't touch Him at all, right? And death is there for every nafs, for everything and everyone. There is death except for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the only one who is pak, who is pure from, who will never have death. And all of us and all the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there is death. They will experience death at least once. Except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Al Qayyum means that He is the one who's the caretaker. He's self-subsistent, meaning He does not need anyone to maintain Him. He maintains Himself, and He is all sustaining, meaning He maintains everything else as well. He's the one taking care of the whole universe, right? And whether it is this earth or the skies, we ourselves, we are functioning, we are breathing, we are living, we are being able to survive. Our needs are being met because He's taking care of us. It is because of Him that we have life, and it is because of Him that we are being maintained. So anything that cannot sustain its own being is dependent on somebody else for their existence. And that thing which is dependent on somebody else for their existence, they cannot claim to have any honor or power by their own right, right? And what does worship mean? When we are worshiping somebody, when we are worshiping a being, when we are worshiping an entity, it means to present myself. When I'm worshiping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I am presenting myself before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in utter submission and humility. I'm completely submitting to Him. And so, if I'm submitting to Him and if I'm worshipping Him, then He should have the highest honor and power. But if He was dependent on somebody, then His power is not the highest. Then whoever He's dependent on would have been, A'udhu Billah, the one who was the more powerful. So, worship only belongs to the one who is going to be Al Hayy and Al Qayyum. It does not make sense to worship anything or anyone who's not Al Hayy Al Qayyum. So his being Al Hayy and Al Qayyum is a dalil for La ilaha illallah. Right. And we can think of what was happening at this time when these ayat were revealed. This was when the Christian delegation had come and they were listening to the Christian delegation from Najran had come to visit the Prophet ﷺ. And when the Prophet ﷺ is reciting these ayat, they're listening to him. They're having these conversations back and forth and discussions, and the Prophet ﷺ is reading these ayat to them. And by saying La ilaha illa huwa, uh, the Prophet says the Quran, and when the Prophet says I was writing that, it's negating anything and everything except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as ilah. What it is telling them when they're listening to what is reminding them is Isa alayhi salam is not al hayy. Isa alayhi salam was born. There was a time that he was born, and he was lifted up. They believe he was crucified. We don't believe he was crucified, but he was lifted up, and then he will come down. And if we go by, even if you think that he was crucified, that means he's not al hayy. That means he's not there at the moment. So Isa alayhi salam cannot be God. Just think about this. Just use your mind about this, and like we have Al Hayy with us. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Al Hayy. Then why would you call, and what it also tells to the mushrikeen in Makkah and to other people as well, that when Al Hayy is there, then why are you calling to somebody who is dead? Anybody who has passed away, if they had control, then over their own life, they would not have. Nobody wants to die. Nobody wants to experience death. So if those people had control over themselves, whom you're trying to worship or whom you're making as objects of worship, they would not have died. Even to lower them into their grave, they needed help. They couldn't just go after their death. They couldn't just transfer to their grave by themselves. Somebody had to give ghusl to them. Somebody had to shroud them. Somebody had to put them in the grave. How can you just use your minds and think about it? That how if they are not al hayy, then how can you worship them, right? And like Iqbal says in his poetry, बुतों से तुझे उम्मीदें खुदा से ना उम्मीदी मुझे बता तो सही और काफरी क्या है, meaning you are putting your expectations on idols and stones and things, and you're not putting your hopes with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Just tell me what else is kufr if not that, right? So our hope should be, it tells us that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is all living, so our hope should always be in Allah. We should never let our hope in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala die, no matter whether we are good or bad, whether we are doing good deeds or we are doing sins, whether our good deeds are less or more. Our hope in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala should never go away, because He is al hayy al qayyum. And this is la ilaha illallah, is the root of our deen, is the foundation of our aqidah. It's not one of the things, it is the real foundation of everything, and it changes the whole life of a person when they understand la ilaha illallah. And this one kalima, this one phrase was the one on which the battles happened between Islam and kufr, right? And even when the laws had not come, like the laws of inheritance had not come, laws of like today we see a lot of Muslims struggling with the laws of Islam, like I couldn't, like to leave alcohol, to leave zina, to leave to lead a life in which there is no riba, there's no this. We see a lot of Muslims struggling. May Allah Ta'ala help us to live by the commands, that to live by the things that He's pleased by. But the kafir at that time, if you look at the seerah, they started opposing Islam even before all these commands came. Why? Because they had a problem with La ilaha illallah. They didn't have a problem with accepting Allah as a God, but they had a problem with negating everything else as an object of worship. That's where the struggle comes in, that you cannot worship anything other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And these words are so heavy that we learn from different hadith, that we learn that's la ilaha illallah. When we put, if these words were put on one side and all the skies and the earth and everything was put on the other side of the scale, then this phrase would be heavier, these words would be heavier. These words are so heavy that they revolutionize our whole life. right? And it literally frees us from slavery of anything and everybody else, and makes us somebody who is just enslaved to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and not to anything else. And as we grow in our faith, as we grow in our la ilaha illallah, as we learn more, as we connect with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala more, we realize different things that we have been enslaved with, like some things that we don't even realize, but Allah ta'ala puts light on them, that, oh, I was so attached to this, or I was so attached to that, or I was so, and then slowly I would realize, yes, I was enslaved by this concept that I have to be this to be honorable, or I have to do this to be valued, or I have to conform to this thing in the society, or I have to do, like they say, do when in Rome, do as Romans do, or go with the wind. And there are many phrases then, but we don't realize the depth of those, that I'm just following. There were things I was following blindly, or there were concepts that I had in my mind for my value or anything that were not real, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala changes them slowly. Uh, when we come to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the more we internalize and live by la ilaha illallah, the more it helps us, and more it frees us from other slaveries, more it literally, it's like it breaks away the chains that we had all around us, and we didn't even realize that we had these chains all around us. And when we come to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when we submit ourselves, then He teaches us everything: etiquettes, morals, how to live our individual life, how to live our social life. For everything, then a believer looks at Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala only. And we say that whatever Allah said is correct, whatever Allah said is wrong is wrong. And then 24/7, what we reach a stage that we're like, okay, I'm going to go ask Allah, what should I do? How should I do? How do I live? How do I marry? How do I die? What are my responsibilities as a wife? What are my responsibilities as a daughter, sister, mother? How do I talk? How do I sit? How do I stand? How do I eat? How do I use the washroom? Right? Like literally, it impacts everything in our life. So when we say La ilaha illallah, when we live by La ilaha illallah, it's not like just a parrot just saying La ilaha illallah. It becomes the center of our life. And it's not a small deal. It changes literally everything of a person's life slowly, and till the last minute of till the last breath of our life. It is we have made a promise to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and as long as we keep our side, Allah ta'ala keeps bringing us into light. Like He says, Allahu waliyul ladina amanu yukhrijuhum min adh-dhulumati ila nur, that He is our wali, and He keeps bringing us out of darknesses and into the light. And so it reminds us to assess ourselves also, that where are we heading? What is the center of my life? What do I give the most importance to? Right? And also, if you look at again the Christians who were interacting with the Prophet ﷺ at that time, what happened at that time is that what it's telling them is that according to their theological interpretations, what were they thinking? What was their beliefs is that Lord became the Son of Lord, and then the Lord died on the cross, and then He will be resurrected, right? And so Al-Hayy, it literally crushes that notion that all life belongs in the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and He is the all living. And also, people of the book, they were well aware of phrases in their book like the living God. Like even now, it's used frequently in their scriptures, the living God, the living God, the living God. So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's might, His knowledge, His glory, and His majesty are mentioned, then it reminds them of the living God. When the Prophet ﷺ is saying, Huwal Hayyul Qayyum, it reminds them of that phrase in their book, the living God, and which also highlights to them the clear contradiction in their own stance, that you are so well aware of the concept of the living God, and you know it very, very well. Yet, how can you believe that Lord crucified Himself? Right? Because He is the living God. He is the God that we worship, the God who is the God of the all mankind. He is the one who's all living, and so he is all living, and He's always living, and He was living, and He is living, and He will be living. So it crushes a lot of their notions, and it tells them that all life belongs in His hand, and it also tells them He's also the one who maintains. So there is so when you truly understand that He is Al-Qayyum, then there is no theological problem that a lot of people who follow the faith of Christianity, when they use their mind, a lot of people ask their own spiritual leaders and everything that, okay, if the Lord died and he was on the cross for 3 days and he was crucified, then who was maintaining the universe when he was on the crucifix? Who was taking care of the universe at that time? So the earth didn't stop rotating, the earth didn't stop revolving around the sun didn't stop giving its light and everything. While if you say, astaghfirullah, but if you say that the Lord was crucified and he was on the cross for 3 days, then what was happening to the universe? How did the universe survive at that time? So it was the Al Qayyum who has been maintaining and who is maintaining this whole universe. And it also reminds this that the Christians, they admit themselves that Jesus, Isa alayhi salam, he felt hunger, he felt thirst, he needed food and he needed water like us. He, to maintain his own existence, he needed all of that. And he wept in the Bible. It is said that he wept when he faced hardships and the things that made him. Obviously, he's a prophet. He doesn't. The prophets don't cry for the kind of things that we cry for. Their pains are much different. Their pains are also for the sake of Allah Subhanahu wa Taala. May Allah Taala give us a better purpose, and may Allah Taala make us of those people who truly the followers of our prophets. So so Isa alayhi salam, we know that he felt hunger and thirst and he wept even at times and everything. So how could he possess the attribute of Al-Qayyum? He could not sustain himself. He needed something to sustain himself. He needed some food and drink, and he needed comfort from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as well. He needed these things to, even emotionally, he needed comfort from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to sustain himself. So how can we call him Al Qayyum? And if he is not Al Hayyul Al Qayyum, then how can you worship him? We love him, we respect him. He has a daraja that obviously is much above those who are not the prophets. The prophets have another level, and we love him for that. We respect him for that. We respect all the prophets. We love all the prophets. We believe in all the prophets, but we do not worship him, and we cannot worship him, right? And this also tells us that Allah Subhanahu wa Taala is the one who maintains, and he is the one who maintains his own teachings as well. That he's the one who decided that the messages of the messages which had been lost by the previous people, he will bring them back to life with the Quran. And he decided that he allowed the teachings of the Torah and the Injil to be lost over a period of time, and he decided which revelation out of all the revelations that he sent, he decided which revelation is going to be al-qayyum, which revelation is going to which revelation, sorry, is going to be qayyim, because he is al-qayyum. He decides which one is going to stay qayyim, and it is the Quran, right? And in Ayat al-Kursi and the following ayat as well, life is a very prominent subject in everything. And dawah to Christians, it also teaches us even today that dawah to Christians should center around this notion. And that is is Isa alayhi salam, is Jesus, is he alive, is he dead, who controls life and death? And all these notions go back to the understanding, to the deeper understanding of the names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Al-Hayy and Al-Qayyum. And when we truly understand that, then we don't violate La ilaha illallah. When we understand that it is only Allah who is Al-Hayy and Al-Qayyum. And anything, and some scholars also say anything we read in this surah after this should reinforce this thing. Anything that we read in Surah Al Imran throughout would reinforce La ilaha illa huwa Al Hayyu Al Qayyum. So anything literally, like for example, when we read Surah Ar Rahman, it starts with Ar Rahman, and then everything that follows that surah, we look at it in the light of the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Ar-Rahman. How is the Rahmah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? How is the Rahmah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this? How is it Rahmah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this and everything? How is He being Ar-Rahman to me right now in these things and everything? So we look at that surah, we try to understand that surah in the flavor of Ar-Rahman. Similarly, in this surah, we will look at, we keep going back to the La ilaha illa huwa al hayyu al qayyum. Even the later part of the surah, we are going to talk about the Battle of Uhud, where Muslims lost a lot of life. And we wonder how is this message going to be retained when a lot of life was lost. A lot of Muslims lost their life and everything. And if we enter, and even today when we see a lot of Muslims suffering, a lot of atrocities are being done against Muslims, a lot of Muslims are being killed at different places, a lot of scholars are passing away, and everything, a lot of things are happening, then sometimes we wonder how is things going to be preserved, how is everything going to be taken care of. Then we realize, if we that when we read these ayah, Allah Ta'ala comforts and says, it's like, like a mother comforting a child, and child who has um, seen something, or seen something injustice or something, and I say, don't worry, you'll be fine. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us, you'll be fine if you internalize Allah is Al Hayyu Al Qayyum, that He is there and there is no God except Him, and He is the one who gives life, and He's the one who maintains, right? He is the one who has provided us with all kinds of resources and means in this life, right? Then how is it possible that He would not give us guidance to fulfill the real purpose of our life, which is the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? He did not create the human beings and the jinns except for His worship. So if this is the purpose of our creation, if He's giving us food, if He's giving us water, if He's keeping us calm for our day-to-day purpose, our day-to-day living, then do you feel that, do you think it is possible that He will not give you guidance to fulfill the real purpose of your creation, that He will not give me guidance to fulfill the real purpose of my creation? He will. And remember that He is Al Hayyu Al Qayyum, and He is going to take care of that, right? And and then Allah Ta'ala tells us that He is the one um, who has revealed, nazzala alayka al-kitab. He has revealed the book. Now, first thing here is that He has revealed. Who has revealed this? The first of all, when we interact with the Quran, then we understand, and then the more we interact with the Quran, the more we understand that who is this book from? Who has revealed this book? It is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And as Allah is Al Hayy Al Qayyum, this kalam, this book as well, this Quran as well, has the same qualities. This kalam is also alive, ever living, and this kalam also holds us, protects us, maintains us. Unlike any other book, like any other book we read, we can read it once, twice, thrice. After that, it loses its flavor over a period of time. Like it could be Shakespeare, it could be like any literature that we pick up, anything that we pick up in this world, any book. It might be our most favorite book, but it's only a certain number of times that you can go over it, or a certain number of people who will basically find guidance from it, but not like or let's say something was written 200 years ago. Um, it was more valid for people at that time. When we look at it, we still get some lessons for it, but not so much, right? But Quran is unlike any other thing. It's like the just like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the quality of like the scholars say that just like the difference between the abd, the human beings, and the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, similarly is the difference between the words of the creation and the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? So this book, it's like unlike another any other book, and it will give life. It is living, it will keep living. This is a living book, and everyone, everywhere, at every time, no matter what place in the world we go to, no matter what generation people belong to, and no matter what age people belong to, no matter what gender people belong to, when they come to this book with their heart and with their class, they feel that this book is speaking to them individually. I will feel that this book is speaking to me. When you read this book, when you interact with this book, you will feel this book is speaking to you. Like if you are, let's say, going through some challenge in your life, someone has belittled you, oppressed you, been unfair to you, if you have any pains which might be related to money, health, children, husband, wife, parents, work, anything in dunya, siblings, anything else at all, this book will be your biggest support, because this is by Al Qayyum, Al Hayyu Al Qayyum. He has given, it is His word, and this book will hold you like nothing else. It will hold you strongly, and none can be a better friend than this book. Even if everyone leaves you, this book is still there. It will hold you. So our teachers say that hold on to this book strongly in the times of happiness, and when you are in your low times, then this book will hold you. It will carry you through, right? And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed this. Also, one thing here is the word, we see the word anzala, some like uh, in the beginning of Surah Baqarah, we said Anzala, and sometimes we see for Quran Nazzala, right? And even in the next ayah, it's like Anzala al Furqan, right? So Anzala and Nazzala, what is the difference between the two? Like they're the same root word. The root letters are the same, but the pattern is different. What does that mean? Anzala means to we can think of it like in terms of a rain, right? So sometimes it's like it rains for 10 minutes, but it's like super, like it's like almost the whole cloud has literally um given all its water. It's like so torrential rain. It just, but 10 minutes and it's over. Sometimes it rains like slow and like calm, and it's like little drops, and it's like calming and everything, and it's over a long period of time. It's like raining for a whole day, but it's like little by little by little, and it's like when you go out you don't get drenched, but you just like you're like mildly, and you're enjoying that rain. It just gives a sweet smell to the soil and everything. So that's like slow coming down is like, you can think of that as nazzala. Nazala, something that's coming down over a period of time slowly. Anzala, something that comes down all together, all at once. So the Quran was both the words are used for the Quran, Anzala and Nazala. Why? Because Quran was revealed, Anzala, it came down once from the uh, from the seventh heaven to the first heaven. That was Anzala, right? It came down on the Lailatul Qadr. The Quran came down once from the Lawh Mahfuz to the first heaven. And then from there, Nazzala. From there, it came down bit by bit. The Jibreel alayhi salam brought it bit by bit to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam over a period of 23 years, right? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has revealed to us the Quran, and He has sent this book slowly, little by little by little by little, to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And what has He sent it with? This book has haqq in it. And what is haqq? Haqq is truth. Haqq is also purpose. And haqq is something, any word or any action is called haqq when it is done at a time that it should be done, in a way that it should be done, how it should be done. So everything is like falls in perfectly. Then something is called haqq, right? So when we say that the Quran is haqq, what does that mean is that first, Quran is the truth. Quran has purpose. Quran gives us a mission. Quran also it came at the time when it was supposed, which was the best time for it to come down. It came to the person that it was the best person for it to come down, right? And it was Allah's decision who it should come down to. And it, uh, it 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 literally lit up the whole world with that and everything, right? And what does it do? It that musaddiqal lima bayna yadayhi, it does tasdeeq. It opens up and explains about the previous books, right? And so it tells us about that. And So these ayat, some say that these ayat were revealed after the Battle of Badr, and which was a strange kind of victory, which was like something, even today historians, they look at Battle of Badr, it's like, how could such a small group defeat such a big group, and they had no weapons, they had nothing. How could this happen, right? And this showed after Battle of Badr, this time period, what was happening was that now uh, people just all of a sudden recognized Muslims as something. Before this, Muslims were like, nobody cared about this small group of people and everything. Like, yes, Mushrikeen in Makkah did, and they did all these things were going on, but now it had shown the world that now this Islam thing is going to spread, and now people were not being able to come out openly and oppose the Islam. But it also led to different kind of personalities now showing up in the community, in the world at that time. So what was there were mukhlis, there were people who had ikhlas, who were Muslim. There were people who were munafiqeen, who entered Islam by saying the shahada and everything, but their heart was never in Islam, which was like Abdullah bin Ubay, who was munafiqeen. And there was another group of people who were like peacemakers. They were like we say today, they are compromising, they're assimilators, and they say things like, all religions are good, let everyone do whatever they want, it will all be good. And when we hear that, it sometimes it seems on paper a very good thing. Like, it seems like, oh, that's so nice, and it's all good and everything. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has told us very clearly that He does not like it or accept it. He has told what is haqq, and the previous scriptures are no more valid. And it is this, we can think of it like a currency change or something, like um, to understand. And sometimes people have a lot of questions about the Torah, and if it was by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what's happening, and why did the final book come and everything, why does it negate, why don't we follow the Torah anymore, and what do we do? So one simple way to understand it is that, if let's say the government releases a lot of bills, like, okay, there's this currency that is there in the market, and let's say one person creates a fake $5 bill, and he puts in the market. Like, if it was just one person, that person would be caught and then punished, and then those notes would be confiscated and things would be done, and the matter is over. But if there's a whole mafia, what they're doing is they're making all these fake notes of $5 bills, and they're spreading it all over the market, and they've spread it all over the market. Like, um, so the correct bills and the fake bills, they're all mixed up in the market now, and it's like full of it. And there's a whole mafia. There's not just one or two people. There's a whole mafia doing it. Then what will the government do? The smart thing for the government to do is just to ban their own bill. They what they will do is, okay, you keep that fake bills. If you want to do this, do whatever you want to do. They won't go after all of that. What they will do is they'll just cancel out their own bill. They say, okay, we have this date until which this currency will no more, this bill will no more be valid. If you have these bills with you, just you have to bring them to the bank, and we'll change them for you and everything. And a new bill is going to be made. And this new bill that we are making, it has holograms, it has this and that, and it cannot be copied. It cannot be, a fake cannot be created of it, right? So if we try to understand like that, then we will clearly understand. And once that date has passed, what will happen? The previous bills will no longer be valid. If somebody takes that old bill, now that the currency has changed, to a shop or this and that, they will no longer accept it because it's no longer valid, right? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed the Quran, the Torah and the Injil as well. And but what happened over a period of time, people made a lot of changes to it and everything. And then though they mixed up a lot of what was sent. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent down the Torah. What should the people have done? Okay, this is the book of Allah. Carry it, study it, teach it, do it. Whatever needs to be done, do that. And same with Injil. Like, you follow it. These you do things and everything, and you teach it and you follow it and everything. What people ended up doing was making so much changes into it, and a lot of things happen, and that happen. And there is wisdom. There's Allah Ta'ala's wisdom in everything that happens. But then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when he brought the Quran, now the previous scriptures are no more valid. But at the same time, Islam and Quran, they do not reject the previous scriptures, but they confirm them. They say that if you really believe, if you are have been a people or person of the book, go back to the roots of your book and try to study them, and the Quran will confirm that, and it will bring you to the Quran. The previous books, they made a prophecy of the final prophet who would come, and they gave a lot of details of the final prophet. And the people who studied them, they recognized the final prophet, like they recognize their own sons, like they recognize everything. And even in the Quran, it said things which they had hidden from even their own people, the scholars of that time. And when the Quran is telling somebody from Makkah who's coming and saying these things which are there in their own books, which they have hidden from their own people, nobody knows this. Is only a special elite group of people who has access to the divine scrolls that they have and everything. And then they're like, okay, how did he know? Right? So it was very clear to them that this is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The word Torah comes from the root words wow, ra, and ya, wuria, right? And wuria, it literally means like one stone is rubbed against the other, and a kind of light, a kind of fire is produced, and that gives hidayah, that gives guidance to the people, right? And so Torah was mainly a book of law. And when we say Torah, to us, the Old Testament, it is the revelation by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But for a Jew, it is a book sitting in their library, which is not just the revelation, it includes a lot of things, right? Similarly, the Injil, and we just talk about this. Similarly, the Injil comes from Noon, Jim, and Lam, which is something which is very wide and open and vast, and it means, or also comes in the meaning of good news, right? So Torah had a lot of laws in it, and Injil had a lot of good news for people. It's like a lot of love and heart, and like connecting to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and those kind of themes were more prominent. And Injil confirmed the Torah in a sense. It did not bring its own separate law, but it confirmed the Torah in a sense that we'll follow that law. But it had a lot of spiritual kind of thing. And Quran, if you look at the Quran, it combines both aspects into one, the legal as well as the spiritual at the same time, mind and heart combined, right? And Isa alayhi salam restored the letter of law and embodied the spirit of the law, right? Like literally cleansing the minds and the hearts and everything. So if we look at the Torah today, it has four things. It is not just the revelation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It has a lot of history of Bani Israel, which has been recorded. It has the seerah of Musa alayhi salam, like what the life of Musa alayhi salam, incidents about Musa alayhi salam. It has some ayat, which were the true ayat from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which were actually the Torah, which they originally had, was destroyed in 586 BC when Bukhtanasar attacked the Bani Israel. He destroyed the Hekal Suleimani, and the copies of the Torah were buried and destroyed. For a long time, there was no Torah on the face of the earth. And then Uzair alayhi salam, that we learnt about after Ayat al-Kursi in Surah Baqarah, he came and he wondered how people will be restored, and then Allah Ta'ala put him to death for 100 years and raised him again. And when he got up 100 years later, Bani Israel were revived again. And he remembered the Allah Ta'ala put the ayat of Torah inside, and it was from his memory that Torah was written again. So, and those ayat, which are the true ayat, are part of that is still there in the Torah. And then there are a lot of ayat which have been changed by people. So today the Torah is a combination of all these four things: the history of Bani Israel, Sirah of Musa alayhi salam, the some correct ayat, which and then the ones which have been changed. The correct parts of the ayat which are there are present in the Quran. So the Prophet ﷺ once saw Umar radiallahu anhu. He had a paper and he was trying to read something from the people of the book and everything. And the Prophet ﷺ did not like that. He said, Umar, even if Musa came back at this time and if you started following him, you would stray from the right path. So stick to the Quran, and because whatever was correct is already present in the Quran. So you stick to the Quran, right? So even Injil today, Injil was not something that was sent down in the form of a book, right? Um, Injil was a thing. Injil contains things that happened in around last 2.5 years of Isa alayhi salam before he was lifted. So it contains the seerah of Isa alayhi salam in a way, the about his birth, about things and everything. It says the sayings of Isa alayhi salam. We can think of it like hadith of Isa alayhi salam. It has the some kalam of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala which came to Isa alayhi salam as wahi. And it also includes a lot of things that people have created themselves, a lot of things that people have just got together, written, and everything. They've done these things together, right? So how was Injil written? Like the helpers of Isa alayhi salam, after Isa alayhi salam was lifted, they was like, okay, our leader is not here and everything. So they wrote everything down, and so that became the Injil. And today we know that there are four books of Injil: Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And there was actually another copy which was written by another Hawari, and his name comes as Barnabas. And this one copy, which was written after, like not long after Isa alayhi salam was lifted up, but currently publishing it is prohibited. And anywhere that that copy is found, it is confiscated. And if somebody finds and reads it, it has very much similarity to the Quran, right? And in it, Isa alayhi salam has not been referred to as God. Right? And today, what we get is the King James version that we see, and all these Matthew, Luke, Mark, Luke, and John are there, and everything's there. Also, what we learn here is in Surah Baqarah, we learned that the ilah was used, the word ilah was used, right? Bin unzila ilayka for the book. وَالَّذِينَ يُؤْمِنُونَ بِمَا أُنزِلَ إِلَيْكَ مِنْ قَبْلِكَ. Right? So, and here the word ala is used, that نَزَّلَ عَلَيْكَ الْكِتَابِ. So, ala means it was put on you, meaning there is a responsibility to be carried. So, what we are being told here is that uh, the there is a responsibility on us to carry on about this book. This book also, the word kitab also reminds us that tells us that uh, the like Quran came down slowly to the heart of the Prophet ﷺ, but it is still a book, just like the previous books, just like the previous books were there, the Torah and the Injil. And the word kitab resonates with the people of the books. It tells them that this is a book as well, although it came down slowly. The way is a bit different from the Torah and the Injil, yet it is the book, or it is the book, and then from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you need to follow that. And Quran also resonates with our Arabs, obviously, because they have more of an oral tradition. Then Allah Ta'ala tells us that before this, earlier, meaning before the Quran, min qablu hudal linnas, before the Quran, these books were guidance for the people. And so is the Quran guidance for the people, right? And so whoever then, and this book now is the Furqan, right? What does it mean by Furqan? Meaning that first, it differentiates between haq and batil. What is haq and what is batil? So Furqan is something that creates this difference. So Quran will tell you, as you study the Quran will tell you what is haq, what is batil. Even from the Injil and the Torah, those people who come from the Jewish and the Christian backgrounds and who become Muslims, and when they read, they will find the criteria in the Quran on what is the right thing in the Torah and in the Injil right now, and what is not the right thing. They will understand that, inshallah ta'ala. So Furqan, it will differentiate, between that. And so also what we learn is that um, when we study this Quran, it you know like um, it 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 tells us like for it tells our intelligence, and it is ultimate in this separation. It's not like still a gray area. It's not like okay, maybe this, maybe that. It is very clear, right? And so it tells us very clear what is right, what is wrong, what do we follow, what do we not follow, and everything. And so Furqan, we can think of it like like a touchstone. Like when we have some gold and we rub it against something, and then we check. Like there's this thing that we have that on which we check whether it is real or gold or not, right? So we can think of the Quran as like one of the names of the Quran. Quran is Furqan, and what it does is that it is now the parameter. It is now the thing through which it will we will learn what is right and what is not right. And we will look at the as Muslims, what will we do? We will look at the Torah and Injil in the light of the Quran. So whatever agrees with the Quran, we'll accept it. Whatever doesn't agree with the Quran, we will not accept it. But we won't go out and neither we will go out and negate it, that okay, Torah and Injil right now is false, 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 because there's something in it which might be from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And there is um, and we won't like accept it totally either. We won't like say that okay, we will accept everything from it and everything. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also tells us that those who did kufr from these ayat, those will have a punishment. Now, who are these people who did kufr from the ayat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? First, it refers to mushrikeen in Makkah because they were rejecting these. It refers to the people of the book at that time who were rejecting the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the book, although they saw him, they understood him. So who is a kafir? A kafir is not just anybody. We can't just call anybody who's not a Muslim a kafir. A kafir is somebody who comes across the truth, understand the truth, and then rejects it, right? So these people understood and then they rejected it. So they're doing kufr in that sense. And not only that, they're trying to harm the Prophet ﷺ, they're trying to kill the Prophet ﷺ. They're getting the message from the best medium. They get the message of the Islam from the best person to explain it in the best way. Yet they are the ones who are not only refusing it, even after understanding it, they are trying to harm the Prophet ﷺ, they're trying to create scandals, they're trying to even kill him and everything. And also it's referred to those people from before, from people from many, many years ago, the people who had been given the Torah, who had the Torah, who had the Injil, and who made changes in them to be able to just fulfill their desires or make some money, or do whatever other kind of corruption had crept into them, or for whatever other reasons they made changes in the ayat of the Torah and the Injil. Then on them also is a severe punishment, because their purpose, their job was just to take that book and then to carry it forward, to take it forward, but they did not fulfill that responsibility. Also, when Allah Ta'ala says that min qablu hudal linnas, before these books, Torah and the Injil, were indeed guidance for the people, because what we also learn when we look at the Sirah was the message had reached in a trickle effect beyond Bani Israel as well. So, for example, if you look at Waraka bin Nawfal, to whom Khadija radiallahu anha had taken the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam when he got his first revelation and everything, and she took him to Waraka, and Waraka said that yes, you are a prophet, and he knew about Christianity. He knew about these things. Also, Salman al-Farsi, we know that he was looking, and through the Christian monks, he had learned that that the final prophet is going to come and all that stuff, and he had reached there. So it was guidance, but a lot of people from the book, they put away that guidance. And a lot of times it's not the common people, it's not the scholars, but those people who are actually engaged in that crime, who actually did that crime, then for them is severe punishment. And also we know that there is something good still in there. Why? Because when somebody does milawat, when somebody does like when something bad is mixed then into something, then it is done into something which is pure, right? Nobody like takes something wrong and mixes something wrong again, and you present it to people, nobody's going to accept it, right? For example, if there's black pepper and somebody's going to put like powdered coal into it to contaminate it or whatever, they'll still have to retain some black pepper in it. Otherwise nobody's gonna take it, right? So or you can't call it Torah if you don't retain anything from the Torah. So they retain something of it, but they changed quite a bit. So whatever they changed and everything, so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying for those people who made these changes, then He is, for them is a severe punishment. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Al Aziz and Duntika, meaning He is Zabardast. He is like, he can take revenge like nobody can take. He's capable of spiteful vengeance. He has ultimate power and authority. He can do whatever he likes. Nobody can stop him. You think that you were able to get away with these changes, and then you will be able to stop even in akhirah any harm from coming to you. No, 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 no. No one can stop him. He has ultimate power. Nobody can stop him, and he can take revenge like nobody can. He can take retribution like nobody can take retribution. Also, another thing that we learn is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made the means for guidance of humanity for for all the times. And He has sent Jibreel alayhi salam. He has sent guidance over 23 years to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He chose the best person to receive the message. He chose the best angel to bring the message. And now this message is not, it's not a small deal. Like, it's somebody who rejects this has uh, a severe punishment. It deserves a special severe punishment. There's so much that happened for this. And even if you look at it for ourselves, there's so much that happened for this Quran to have reached us, for us to have this privilege. Previous people did not have the privilege to touch, feel, read their holy scripture by themselves. It was reserved for the elite of their communities, who would only have access to this. Everybody else would have to just go by what is they're being told, right? So for us, what it means is that, do you think that Allah Ta'ala does not know what we will require in like 2020s now? Allah Ta'ala knows. So when we hear somebody say things like, these things in the Quran, these rules in the Quran, they were valid before, but it's not in today's day and age. It's like not, or like that was alcohol. Allah Ta'ala banned that kind of alcohol. Like, what you have today, beer is not like, it's not, doesn't fall in that category, or this and that, or anything. So what it teaches us is that when we are, it's a huge deal to say something which does not conform to the ayat of the Quran. So we need to, when we talk about the Quran, we should think before opening our mouth. Even if we have the right intentions, we should think before we open our mouth about the Quran. So for example, let's say Islam allows us, a man to have 4 wives. And let's say, as a wife, I'm like, I don't want my husband to have another wife, and I would, of course, may Allah protect, that I want to be the only wife and everything. That is one thing. That, okay, I don't want it. This is one thing. This is my preference. This is this. I want to be the only wife. That is my preference. That is well and good. But if I start to say something like, what, why does Islam allow this? And maybe this was valid for that time. It is not valid for this. I try to um, say something about the what was revealed, just because I wanted to conform to my liking or what I want in my life. Then that, if I don't want to talk about it, nobody's forcing me to talk about it. Nobody's forcing. There's a lot of things that are halal, but we don't have to engage in all of it. But we need to pay attention to how we are speaking about the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, how we are speaking about Islam, how we are speaking about things, right? So we, like a lot of scholars say, that don't call upon the ghazab of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Don't protect yourself from the adab, right? And if people who knowingly reject and knowingly do the kufr of the ayat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then as believers we are supposed to be so careful. Then anybody who knowingly does kufr of total kufr of the ayat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what will be their condition on that day? And may Allah Ta'ala protect us from that. May Allah Ta'ala give us a deeper understanding of His ayat. May Allah Ta'ala help us to be the people who are attached to His ayat, who understand His ayat, who recite His ayat, who make these ayat our focus in our life, who make these ayat the ones that guide us on how to live our life, um, how to live our life, how to live every moment of our life, and how to engage in different things in our life and everything. May Allah Ta'ala make us of those people that who He is pleased with. May Allah Ta'ala make us of the people of La ilaha illallah. May Allah Ta'ala make us of those people who call upon Him with Ismul Azim. May Allah Ta'ala make us of those people who He is pleased by, and who answers, whose duas He answered. Just like He united us as sisters in Islam in this world, may Allah Ta'ala reunite us as sisters in Islam in the Akhirah, on the day of judgment, under the shade of His throne, when there will be no shade except His, and we'll all be looking for shade. And then may He reunite us again in Jannatul Firdaus and grant us the company of the Prophet ﷺ and Khadija radiallahu anha. Ameen ya Arhamar Rahimin. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. ربنا تقبل منا. سبحانك اللهم أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك 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 ونتوب إليك.